All right, we are back here getting ready for the first ever 12-team edition of the College Football Playoff. Joining me today to break it all down, great friend of the podcast, the college football reporter extraordinaire for the Sporting News, Bill Bender is here. Bill, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on once again here. And obviously, this has been a very interesting season, even outside of the 12-team playoff. Like, for those who have not been paying as much attention to the college football landscape, what do you feel like your big takeaway from this season that we've seen so far?
The regular season was fun. Conference championship weekend was different. The 12-team playoff era. I mean, I have mixed feelings about it. I think, as somebody that covered the Ohio State-Michigan game, that was probably the worst loss for Ohio State that I can remember in the regular season, and they get to go to the college football playoff. So the consequences for some of these games have certainly changed. That said, I'm excited to see it. First time for everything, and the first round games, I hope they're competitive. I hope they're compelling, and we get good storylines out of them.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned the conference championship game, which is probably an interesting scenario here, where in the past, those were a big deal, whereas we said, you have to win one to make sure you're in the playoff. And now with the 4 automatic bids for the conference winners and the group of 5 winner, there was some thought going around here that, maybe not being in the conference title game is a good thing. And we saw SMU was sweating it out before they got put in. So, what do you think about how this will impact the conference title games?
They're still fun. I don't know how much value they have, honestly. I've been on that side of it where, you're making an extra bet. But the committee did honor that. They honored Texas and Penn State lost their game, and they're still 5-6. SMU lost their game, and they still got in. So the committee made a statement there, in my opinion, that if you go and lose these games, we're not going to, penalize you too much because you made it. I think it's helpful when you have huge leagues to have that happen. So that part I'm okay with. The value, the seeding part, they've got to fix. The fact that Oregon won a Big Ten championship and everybody's talking about, not just me, a lot of people are talking about the fact that their playoff road is probably tougher than Penn State's, and they just got done beating Penn State, and their reward is going to be potentially playing Tennessee or Ohio State. That's a tough sell to me.
Yeah, it seems like that's the biggest complaint in terms of the seeding here is that the 4 buys, most people feel they got it right, but do you feel like that the straight bracket is the issue here? You feel like if there's a reseeding scenario that Oregon would not be in as rough a shape seeding wise?
Yeah, I think that's the easy fix. Just seed it properly. Seed it like you do the rankings, and if you do that, you get an 8-9 game that's Indiana Boise State. That's perfect. You get a 6-11 game that's a 7-10 game, I believe. It's Ohio State, Arizona State. Now, I'll watch that. And Clemson, Texas stays the same. But the matchups are, I think it's Clemson, Notre Dame, actually. Either way, the matchups are better in the first round. The bracket makes more sense. The playoff paths are more fair. Have a better product. So I think that's one tweak they will have to look into, depending on how it goes. If Boise State makes a run to the championship game, then I won't be able to say anything like that. But on the outset, that's how it looks.
Yeah, for sure here. And in terms of the big couple of big controversy things here, it's Alabama are getting left out over SMU. I think they made the right call here. SMU looked like they belong in the playoff here. I know Alabama had bigger wins. They lost twice to teams that end up 6-6 on the year. I think that might be the only argument I have for a snub, but I think they did a pretty good job getting the right 12 in.
They did. And, if this is the format we're going to do, you have to honor the regular season. They're honoring the fact that SMU didn't lose a conference game. I think that's huge. I think, Alabama has a case. They do. And they had gotten the benefit of the doubt over the years in the 4-team era, the BCS era. They did. But the committee legitimized this format. Do I think SMU would beat Alabama? No, I don't. But, in this format, the way we have it set up, it's right to put SMU in. Now, they will be under a lot of scrutiny. The ACC will be under a lot of scrutiny. And, this format, inevitably, when you have 12, 13, 14, 15 are going to be mad. And they are. So that's what makes it so interesting to me. I think it'll lead to a push to try to push this thing to 14 or 16. I'm not the biggest fan of that, but, that's inevitably probably going to happen.
Yeah, that's for sure here. And obviously, another thing that's worth watching here is the Boise State situation here, because obviously They go 12-1. They're one loss by 3 to Oregon. It's not how well that's aged here. Like, you happy Boise State got a bye here? Because I know there was some controversy leading into this about whether they deserve to bye, considering they played a weaker schedule than some of the other teams.
I'm glad they're in. I don't know that they need a bye, and that's why like the seeding thing is so important. That if we're going to do this, we should do it correctly. That's a school that was denied BCS championship appearances, and tried to fight through this through the college football playoff. I love the program. I love the upsets. I love their opportunity that they're going to get in the Fiesta Bowl of all places against probably Penn State. So, yeah, but should they get a bye? No, not in this format. We should do this like we did. If you want to do it like March Madness, then you've got to seed it like March Madness, where they're okay putting multiple teams from the same league on that number one line. Nobody complains when it's North Carolina, Duke, and Virginia, which it was like 5 years ago. There shouldn't be the same complaints if it's Texas and Georgia on that number one line.
Yeah, that's for sure. Let's go quickly around some of these matchups here for the first round. We'll start, obviously, the 8-9 game that Oregon's waiting for the winner of Ohio State, Tennessee at the Horseshoe on December 21st. Like, what do you think about that matchup?
Well, the hangover. Does Ohio State come out hungover from the Michigan loss, or do they play like the team that's capable of winning a national championship? I guess no team has that kind of boomer bust feel to me other than the Buckeyes. They have the most talent in a lot of ways. They didn't use their receivers properly against Michigan. I think they'll learn from that against Tennessee and try to throw it around. Tennessee does some things well, too, though. They run the football with Dylan Sampson. And it really will come down to how Nico Iamaleava plays on the road in the elements. And it is cold up here. I live in Central Ohio. There's snow on the ground right now. So that's one thing we've all been waiting to see over the years with this format is how does he respond to playing in this? And it is going to be interesting. But, for me, emotionally, it really comes down to how the Buckeyes come out for this game. If they come out and there's a hangover.
Make matters worse, they were stubborn. And
Michigan in the back of their heads. I don't think they will as competitors, but you never can tell. That will be the root cause. If they get beat, that's the first thing people point to around here.
Yeah, that's true here. The 5-12 game, Texas, Clemson, pretty much told you that Clemson would not have gotten in if they didn't win the ACC's auto bid. So I think this is going to be, I feel like of all the four games, this one probably has the biggest blowout potential, the Texas-Clemson matchup.
It does, but, the other part of that is same as last week. Like, Dabo's been there, done that. He was 8-1 in the ACC championship game, so the fact that they won last week wasn't a total surprise to me. He has experience in this spot. That program's not going to back down. The problem will be if Texas can get their running game going early and Clemson struggled in its losses with stopping the run, then Quinn Ewers will be free to do what he wants. Quinn Ewers there's been a lot of people thinking of his performance all season, and some of that's because of the guy behind him, Arch Manning. He had 2 games all year where he had a completion percentage less than 60%, and both of those games were against Georgia. So it's not like he's had a bad year. He had a couple bad games against a really talented defense in Georgia.
Yeah, that's true. And we got the most fun game in terms of storyline potential here is Notre Dame, Indiana on Friday night. Obviously, Notre Dame gets in the playoffs. First time, I think, since the 1980s that we had a Notre Dame home game not on NBC. And then you have Indiana, who nobody in a million years would have thought would make the field coming into the season. They're here coming off a wild, crazy year. So I think this game, if you're a casual fan, I think is going to get your interest.
I think it's going to be the most competitive of the four. Indiana, what did they learn from Ohio State? I was at that game. They weren't in Ohio State zip code competitively. And in theory, Notre Dame and Ohio State are very similar. I'd say maybe has a little bit more talent at receiver, but the rest of those two teams is very similar. So the Irish have a tremendous opportunity here. In-state element to it makes it fun. And, Kurt Cignetti's not going to back down. He's going to be a coach of the year on a lot of coach of the year ballots. So we shall see. I think it's going to be really fun to watch that one. Of the four, like I said, probably the potential for the best game.
Yeah. The last one here, Penn State, SMU. Obviously, SMU gets the reward for their regular season. They get in here. They go to Penn State, whose only 2 losses are teams in the field in Ohio State and Oregon in the Big Ten title game here. What do you think about this matchup?
Tremendous opportunity for Nittany Lions. James Franklin takes so much heat for a big game performance and not being able to win as an underdog. They're 0-6 as an underdog since 2022. Everybody harps on that, but they're pretty good as a favorite. They've only lost one game as a favorite the last 3 years, and that was to Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl. So at home in that environment, I mean, SMU is going to have to adjust. Their best bet will be go tempo as much as they can against that Penn State defense, much like Oregon did. Room for that game to be interesting, sure, but lines will feed in. And again, we talked about pass. They have a tremendous opportunity pass-wise if they can knock off Boise State. A lot of people will complain about that pass, but they won't because they'll be in the semifinals.
Yeah, they won't here. And in terms of, obviously, we have our first round matchup. We know who the 4 top seeds are here. What of the potential second round games the most intriguing to you? It'd be whoever gets to Oregon?
Right. Yeah. The 2, Georgia, Notre Dame, Oregon, Ohio State. If those 2 matchups materialize, what's different? Do the Buckeyes win the rematch? They took Oregon to 1 point in Austin, and both teams kind of left. Oregon kind of left that game thinking, hey, we left 10 points on the board. Ohio State probably left that game thinking, hey, we had a chance to win it at the end. So that would be fun. And then, of course, Notre Dame, Georgia. What does Georgia's quarterback situation look like? How do the Bulldogs, react to that? And for the Irish, a tremendous opportunity. Another big game opportunity for Marcus Freeman. So I think those are the 2 matchups that will materialize in the second round that would college football playoff bracket.
Yeah, and obviously now with the more traditional bracket, we have the opportunity here, like where you have teams playing the first weekend, might have to win 4 games, win a national championship. Do you feel like there's a team here that can go on like a magical run and get deep into this thing? Like, who do you feel like is not getting enough appreciation for how far they can take it?
I'm Tennessee. They can get past Ohio State. They do a lot. I always look at scoring offense, scoring defense. 2 most simple stats in this world where there's a billion stats for everything. Do you score more than the other guy? Do you prevent them from scoring more than you? And top 5 in both. So that combination, if Nico's got a lot of talent, he's maybe not the most experienced quarterback in this field, but he does have a 5-star pedigree. If he handles that pressure, I go back to how he played against Iowa in the bowl game last year. And that could be a preview for these next couple games. I mean, if he handles that, and Tennessee plays well, tremendous opportunity for the Vols to make a run.
Yep. My last question here is obviously this is the first time I really got the opportunity to sort of fill out a whole bracket, whereas like previous years been, just pick 2 winners and that's your championship game. Like, who do you have as your final 4 teams? Who do you think is going to end up winning the whole thing and all said and done?
Well, mine's chalky right now. I mean, Georgia, Oregon, that makes sense to me. Getting to the semifinals with both of those teams. Penn State, that path is there. They might as well take advantage of it. So, on one end, I have, Nittany Lions making that run to the 4, and that leaves, what's the other pot of Texas? Texas will win their first 2. So when we get Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Georgia, it would be hard not to pick Georgia in that instance. And then you get, on the other side, Oregon. So I think you get the Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart rematch from a couple years ago, where Georgia won by like 49 points. A lot changes here. I'm taking Oregon. I mean, I think that's the easiest pick. They have a quarterback. They have a strong running game, and they're built on the offensive and defensive lines to do this. So absent an injury or a complete choke job, I think the Ducks get it done.
Should be a fun college football playoff, Bill. Thanks all the time. Really appreciate it. People want to follow you on social media and keep up with your coverage for the sporting news. How can they do that?
Yeah, I'm at Bill Bender 92 at sportingnews.com. Looking forward to this playoff, and always appreciate talking to you. This is a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. Thanks for all the time. Looking forward to following your coverage of the playoff going forward.
Hey, no problem. Thank you.